we're a couple weeks early this month due to the fact that the next 2 weeks, well, the next one's Christmas Eve, and then the week after that, New Year's Eve, and then, my goodness, we're into 2016.
The years go by way too fast.
A little bit.
Oh my goodness, yeah. You know, when we're young, we wish the days and years away, and now I want to get them back.
Yeah, slow down. Add an extra couple of weeks here. That'd be great. Of course, that's the voice of Lisa Carcifero from the Prevention Coalition. And it's always nice to be in studio with you, Lisa. And you always bring a great panel. And we have another one today. Who's in studio?
We do. We have, my sidekick, Rafael Agudelo, who is a grant coordinator at the Prevention Coalition and also runs all of our youth programming, which is no small feat, I might add, because you're working in Cumberland, Lincoln, and Woonsocket, and all over the place, and bringing our youth committees stuff over to those communities. So welcome, Rafael.
Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here. Jeff, good to see you as well.
Yes.
And yeah, we're moving out here in the community all over northern Rhode Island. So we're doing a lot of great things. So we're really excited at the Woonsocket Prevention Coalition.
Very good. And our special guest today is Eric Kramer. He is the Executive Director of MAD Rhode Island. So welcome, Eric.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to have you here. And you know, at this time of year with the holidays fast approaching, we really like to just educate and inform and remind the community of how important it is during this time to celebrate safely and really think about making good choices during the holidays, especially when it's regarding drinking and driving, and you know, also the drug driving. You know, so anything that you're putting into your system that would impair your driving abilities is what we want people to think about at this time of year, and always, but especially at this time of year when we're, you know, having so many different celebrations. And so to start off, you are the new Executive Director of MAD Rhode Island. So I'd like you to just introduce yourself and a little bit about what you're doing over at MAD Rhode Island, if you could.
Appreciate that, absolutely. I just started as a new executive director with Mothers Against Drunk Driving in January of this year, and I've inherited a phenomenal staff. And prior to me, there were only 2 other executive directors. Each one of them had been the executive director with MAD for over 10 years. Yeah. And actually, the original executive director had been there for about 17 years, as my understanding goes.
And people might know his name, Dave Naradori, or Dave Russell. So, and then after Dave was Gabrielle Abadi, Gaby.
Yep.
So and now, so you're the third in a line.
Excuse me for asking, but you appear so young. How old of a guy are you?
I'm only 35 years old.
Oh, congratulations! It's a great position at such a young age.
Yeah.
Just curiosity, briefly, how does one climb and a little bit of your background experience to become the executive director?
Sure.
It's a young age. It's terrific.
I appreciate that, Jeff. Thank you. I had a background in nonprofit management. I was with the Boy Scouts of America locally here in Rhode Island for close to 9 years with the Narragansett Council. And prior to that, I was actually a newspaper reporter, both with the Westerly Sun and with the Brockton Enterprise. Oh. So I was actually doing double duty at the same time for quite a few years there.
It's a great newspaper, the Enterprise. I was a daily reader of that for a number of years when I did radio in Bristol County. Yep. It was a wonderful paper.
Evening paper too, which is kind of a
dinosaur.
As
an afternoon radio guy, I loved it.
Yes, that's a dying breed. That's very rare now to see an evening newspaper.
That's quite a career path.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was, and I had a personal background. I'd never been involved with MAD before, but I had a friend in high school who was killed by a drunk driver. So it's something that has stuck with me. It's been something that it's always in the back of my mind at all times. It's always driving me to really look at things from that perspective. And I remember that time with us because it was a week before our graduation and a week before our prom when that occurred. So it was something that I think that for anybody who was involved during that period back in my former community, I think that they'll never forget it. And I wish that it didn't take tragedies like that to have drunk driving be in people's minds. And that's, I think, why the messaging is so important to have out there on a day-to-day basis, letting individuals know that drunk driving is a crime that occurs every single day, and it's 100% preventable, and it just takes that one decision by one person to whether or not they're actually going to be making the wrong choice or the right choice.
Certainly impactful when that happens at any age, but you talk about kids dealing with it in the school, and unfortunately for many it is an introduction to the reality of drunken driving. I can remember right in Bellingham we had a similar situation where this young man was on his bicycle and he was struck by a drunk driver, and it was a hit and run. They ended up finding him later, but he was killed that way. It's very difficult at that school age, and even I was probably a sophomore at the time, and I was surprised at how you fall apart at the loss, and then the concept of that loss, and I was damaged for a little while, and it's just what a reality check when that happens, and even though for the kids in the school it affects everybody at that school, because here's a young person realizing, well, we're all mortal, we all are mortal. So it's an interesting call because it does impact, unfortunately, very deeply.
Yeah, and you probably remember that Mad Rhode Island's origins unfortunately began here in Woonsocket with the tragic loss of Mrs. Allard's daughter, Denise Allard. And that was 83, 84.
1983.
83. I remember I was in high school at the time. And it was, like you said, so impactful that I didn't know her personally until a little later our paths crossed. But it was just so tragic. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that, Eric, just because there is such a strong connection to Woonsocket.
Absolutely. The Mad Rhode Island had all of its origins here. It was founded by individuals here in support and funded originally here in Woonsocket. And it had all of its origins there. My understanding is that Mrs. Allard had been in contact with David Russell in regards to trying to start a chapter for Mad Rhode Island. And really went off and running, and we had great support from organizations like the Woonsocket Rotary that helped found some of the programs and resources, including Team Spirit, which is the youth program that we have during the summer that we have at Bryant University. And it's been at Bryant since the beginning, so it's been a long-standing program here that's been highly successful. So our roots in Woonsocket are very deep.
And we continue, as a Rotarian, a Woonsocket Rotarian, we continue to support Mad Rhode Island, especially at Team Spirit, because that is something that started in Dave. Had that connection many years ago, and I just saw Dave a couple weeks ago. So he's a good guy, and that has done a lot for bringing this to the forefront. But it's too bad, like you said, that someone else's incredible tragedy would come to play in this way. That's how we learn. But if you think about our lives, it's not until we experience something or it directly affects us that sometimes it fuels some kind of passion, and it fuels us into movement and activity and advocacy.
I agree, and one of the things too, and it's something that I think most people don't necessarily think about. I even day to day, I work for MAD, and I actually don't on a regular basis think about what my world would be like if I was hit by a drunk driver or somebody that I know was hit by a drunk driver. It's not a world that we're used to, and it's something we shouldn't be used to for any crime for that matter. We don't realize what is actually going to occur once that happens. Now you're thrust into this arena that is totally unknown. And that's why organizations like Mothers Against Drunk Driving serve such a huge resource for them, because we can help navigate that world for them, whatever their needs may be.
And when you're so deep into that grief and loss and tragedy, it's hard to maneuver any part of your world. So I think having an agency or an organization that is there to help you walk those steps is so important, just because you just don't think the same again. And in Mrs. Allard's case, losing a child, I can't even begin to imagine that kind of loss. So I don't know if any of us could, you know. So to put that tragedy into positive work, she's just, you know, in my eyes, just an incredible lady, an incredible martyr. And I know we lost her a couple of years ago, unfortunately. Mrs. Allard passed. But so that's kind of the roots of MAD Rhode Island, and thank you for that. You mentioned Team Spirit as one of your services, and I know we're close to Team Spirit. We have been sending, gosh, I've been with the Prevention Coalition for 16 years, and they were sending kids to Team Spirit before my time. So probably well over 20 years. Did it start about, I know MAD started close to 30 years ago.
Yes, 32 years ago, 1983. Team Spirit started in 1990.
90,
yep.
Okay.
And
So,
you had mentioned Gaby Abadi already. She was the originator. Dave had utilized her skills and her resources to be able to put together a youth program, and that was Team Spirit. And that occurs every single summer. It is from about a week long, and we've been having it at Bryant University for the last 25 years. This year was our 25th anniversary. And if anybody is not aware what Team Spirit does, Team Spirit is a program where kids really get energized and excited about learning about their world in regards to why they do not need to be making destructive decisions in order to have fun and to have a great experience while they're in school. They'll get to learn all about various different activities and confidence building exercises, and again, just like it sounds, Team Spirit. It's the energy level that they'll be getting is nonstop, and it really builds a great atmosphere for them so that when they leave and they're now ready for their school setting, they can bring everything that they've learned back in there and really get other kids involved with it. And it really also opens their eyes that there are kids that are just like them that might feel the same way about making the right decisions, and really how to communicate that out to both their schoolmates and the community at large.
and that's not always a popular decision, to decide not to carry that red cup filled with some kind of alcohol, or not to take those pills that someone says will make them feel so great. You know, that's not always a popular decision. That really takes strength of character. And I think that certainly, you know, Team Spirit is one of the places that can help build a youth's character and their ability to make good choices. So that's why, you know, we certainly send some of our youth. And maybe Rafi will get to experience it this summer.
Yeah, I actually had the opportunity to attend the final day over this past summer, and I'll tell you, I walked into the room, and the energy in that room just gave me goosebumps. The hair on my arms would stand up, and it was the kids were alive, they were pumped up, and it's really exciting to see youth really get pumped up about something positive like that. And it really all starts with the youth, and you know, just the whole peer-to-peer model, and them changing their own community. They have the power to do that, and Team Spirit really fosters that and sparks that flame inside of them. So it was really a great experience.
Yeah, it is. It's a great program. And I know there are other programs, many other programs that you work on, and one we just held a vigil. Beacon Charter High School was the host school for the recent Candlelight Vigil. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yes, for the last 32 years we've been holding a Candlelight Vigil in honor of all the victims of drunk driving, both nationally and here locally. This is the first year that we've had a coordinated national event that is coincided with it. So every MAD chapter across the country had their Candlelight Vigil on December 3rd. And it was really about standing together as an organization and really trying to build on that. And the great thing about the vigil is that it gives an opportunity for people to see you know, some of the victims that are out there that you may not see, and it gives them an opportunity to come out and you know, get other supports as well from other victims and partners and like-minded individuals within the state. And they did a phenomenal job over at this the St. Anne Arts and Cultural Center here in Woonsocket. The place is a gorgeous building, and it was a wonderful atmosphere, and the kids and the staff over at the Beacon Charter School did a phenomenal job in putting together that program.
They did. They absolutely did. And I think what strikes me that night, we saw a lot of the survivors of, crash victims, but the survivor families rather, but what also kind of reminds us is that not everyone passes away from a drunk driving crash. And we had one of the speakers, Kathy Andriozzi, whose daughter was a black belt at 10 years old or some young age, 10, 12 years old, and was hit by a drunk driver, and is now in a wheelchair and unable to speak and care for herself. So it's a really very sobering reminder that not everyone does pass for a drunk driving crash. And as a matter of fact, you probably heard that we had a crash here about a week and a half ago on Mendon Road with death resulting, and the driver was certainly impaired and had a rap sheet. You probably heard of that, Jeff. I'm sure
that's
you reported on it.
That's a whole other side, though, because we're talking. We've mentioned a lot about being struck by a drunk driver, whether you're in another vehicle, whether you're a pedestrian, whether you're on a bike. Where in this situation, the woman who passed away was 22-year-old Alexandra Parento, just a newborn baby, maybe 4 to 6 weeks old.
I think 13 weeks.
Was it 13?
Yes, something very
young
young,
infant.
Yeah.
And they were out, not with the infant, but they were out in a group, maybe 4 or 5 people, partying. They were driving. This was very early in the morning, maybe 1:45, 1:30 in the morning, 1:40 I think it was. And the man driving the vehicle lost control somehow and struck a utility pole and took the passenger's life, who was the mother of his kid. I mean, it's just tragedy amongst tragedy amongst tragedy in this story. So the other choice that needs to be made, besides having that drink and getting behind the wheel, is do you get into a vehicle
That's right.
with somebody who's had that drink?
And that's certainly part of the communication and the messaging and the education that needs to be out there for everybody, not just young people. And it's certainly part of what we teach at Team Spirit and the curriculum that we use for all of our youth programs that occur every single week throughout the school year. But I think that's a huge message that needs to be out there, is that people need to be cognizant of who you're getting into a vehicle with and really trying to make the right decision. And again, it's that confidence level of being able to try to stop people from doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And it's this constant education that needs to be out there in our culture. And again, you might know individuals that they may be on the fence of whether or not they're going to be making the wrong decision, and it's really as a responsibility of people to try to stop them, because not only would they be harming themselves, but obviously potentially harming other people as well.
And that's very true, and we talk to youth about it all the time, but there are adults that are making, very bad, dangerous choices to get behind the wheel after driving and being impaired. And you're right, those around also need to make a choice to take the keys, sit and let them sober up, because we know it's time that does it. It's not about, eating more, it's about letting that get through your system. So I think those around that person need to help out in some ways, and not get in the car, refuse to let them get in the car, take the keys, do whatever's necessary, and offer alternatives too. That's something else I wanted to talk about, that it's not only having to drink alcoholic beverages, but there's so many other alternatives that we can, participate in mocktails, which is something that Mad Rhode Island does and our youth participate in. There are so many drinks that you can have that don't have to have alcohol, and especially if someone's already impaired. So I don't know if you want to talk about that activity.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
So Mocktail is an event we have every spring. It has a victim adoption program piece to it, where the school will be participating in a competition. So their responsibility is to make a non-alcoholic beverage for judges to test and enjoy. As well, they also need to do some sort of program in honor of a victim that they've adopted for the year. So they might incorporate into their presentation some visuals or music or things like that their victim, who may or may not be still alive, of interest to them. So you might see poetry or sports or photographs or something that would be in honor of their victim, and they have to be well versed in who their victim was. So they have to discuss at length about their victim and explain to them their who they were, so that we have a nice picture as a judge and as a community person visiting who this person is or was, and because it really is a great way to keep this person in the mind's eye. And again, whether or not this individual is still alive or not, it's a great way of doing honor to them and remembering them, and that's really what it's about. And even though the mocktail is a great educational piece for the students to understand that they do not need to be drinking alcohol to enjoy themselves when they're out, or if they're doing any sort of activity, but also keeps it in the mind's eye that this is really about victims, and that we are a victim services organization.
Yeah. And a couple of years ago, we had a young woman who was in school to become a fashion designer. And our youth at Beacon did a little bit of a fashion show, and the family came. And what a nice tribute. And, it's always bittersweet because you are recognizing the individual. And for the families, it's really a reminder. But also that kind of smile reminder that look at the good things they did and how this is a nice tribute to them and recognizing them. So I think, we did that with our victim, and the family was there, and that was nice to see them. And that's a great event, and the kids love to go to mocktails, so that's a lot of fun. I know that you do work and you collaborate with cities and towns throughout the state. Do you want to talk about some collaborations, some things that are done?
Absolutely, would love to. One that very recently I could bring up was in the city of Central Falls. We did a program where the mayor and in the city, as well as the police department and the school department, are all working in conjunction with both MAD and with other nonprofits like Progresso Latino to bring the messaging out there that we're going to be really out within the community trying to create a lot more awareness and education. So really that is just getting involvement from the schools to get participation in some of our activities, as well as having some messaging from the city officials themselves out to the community at large about public safety as it pertains to drug and drunk driving, as well as the resources available to victims that can be offered and assisted through some other third parties. So, and it's a great way of getting a community at large to get behind a program like this. And it's something that I always try to make, get a media presence as well, so that it's people are aware that this is occurring. That this, for example, the city of Central Falls is behind MAD's resources, and that they'll do whatever they can to assist. And it really sends a great message to the community and to the residents that everybody is in support of them and they're there to help, no matter what that may be.
Speaking of assisting and working together, and I don't want to interrupt. I don't know if you had anything to say, Ralph. Jump in, but whatever happened? I was listening to you about working with the communities, working with the police department, and what flashed in my head was being younger and not driving, but riding in the family car, and I'm in the back seat, Pop's in the front, Mom's in the passenger seat, and my sister's on the side of me annoying me. And we were coming down Clinton Street, and I can remember sobriety checkpoints, where there would be maybe some cones set up. Everybody drove through the cones, and the police said, hello, yep, good evening, have a good evening, and you're on your way, or say, could you pull your car over here? Whatever happened to those? I don't know if either one of you had that. Where did they go, and why aren't they done today?
They are done very often in many other states. You might see some neighboring states will be having a sobriety checkpoint. It's certainly something that I would like to revisit on the legal end. I'm certainly no expert In regards to legal matters, I do believe that there was a decision that was made at the court level many years ago. Not sure if that could be something that could be revisited again. I don't want to speak too much out of turn about it, but I'm certainly no legal expert.
I'm not sure if the ACLU was involved or something to that degree.
There's a very good chance they may have.
Yeah. I'm not sure either, but yeah, there was some kind of court action, and so all of them stopped here
Correct.
in Rhode Island. Yeah, but on a positive note, our police department is really active, and they put up those flashing signs, the mobile signs, and reminding people, to celebrate safely. So we're really trying to give those same messages. We're so lucky that our police department is, so active in the community and has made it a point, to engage in community policing and engage in the same messaging that we're giving, so it's...
Oh, absolutely. I can't say enough about how law enforcement has really made a huge difference in stopping drivers from getting on the roadways while they're impaired. They've done such a phenomenal job in everything that they do. They've deterred people from getting on the roadways with not only their messaging that they put out, and we'll see it both on radio and on billboards and on television, that the police will be out, and that if you are going to be drinking and driving, you will be pulled over and you will be arrested. It's a simple message, but it's true, and they've done a phenomenal job at doing that statewide throughout all the law enforcement officials. They're a wonderful partner, and they've really taken this very seriously, and they have for many, many years, and I really want to give a lot of credit to them in really helping to drive down the DUI-related issues that we have here. I mean, we've come a long way since 1980 when Matt started. I mean, it's in many different fronts. We've come a long way, and I feel that certainly their efforts have been a part of that.
Yeah, and I know sometimes people like to hear, but statistics can be very important for people to understand kind of the severity of the issue, or exactly how their community is being affected. Do you have any of the updated statistics on, the DUI and, crashes?
The most updated one that I have are from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. That was from 2013.
Yeah.
And that year there were 24 DUI-related fatalities here in Rhode Island. And that was of 56 overall traffic fatalities that happened that year. So that percentage is a little bit higher than the national average. Of the national average that they've found is that about a third of all traffic fatalities are DUI related, which is a number that has decreased over the years. However, that is still an unacceptable number in many respects. That's very high, and those are 24 individuals in the year 2013 that were killed because of one other person's decision. And I think again that's where the message needs to come out, that that does not ever need to happen again. There's so many alternatives out there that there's no excuse to be drinking and driving. And you could rattle off many different alternatives. You have public transportation, you have Uber, you have Lyft, you have, and probably the best is a designated driver, somebody that if somebody is planning properly, then this will not occur again. Or call somebody that you trust. I think the big messaging, especially around the holiday season, is to plan ahead. I mean, if somebody knows that they're going to be out somewhere, plan appropriately. Make sure that you have something in place where you will not get behind the wheel, or nobody else is going to get behind the wheel while they're impaired. I mean, there's no reason to be doing it.
Yeah. And, there are so many other things that occur when somebody is impaired, too. We have violence that increases, we have rapes, there's so many other things getting behind the wheel. Certainly no one should be behind a 2,500-pound vehicle. That's a weapon. But, we do deal with a lot more violence, or people that are drinking and commit suicide. And there's so many other things that go along with, the alcohol use. We know it's a depressant, so someone that's depressed using a depressant, it's going to lead to somewhere that's really not healthy and not good for that person or anyone else. So, and we know all, what's happening in the world of gun violence. So, you have somebody that might be using alcohol and has a gun available. So, our minds can go so many places. So, any impairment can affect so many.
The other big side of that too is drugs. I mean, a lot of people, they don't necessarily put have them coincide, that they view drunk driving differently than if somebody was using drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, number one, obviously the message there is that using illegal drugs is illegal, and number two, you shouldn't be getting behind the wheel while you're using drugs anyway. It's the same approach. Now, obviously the impairment level will be harder to determine than it would be with alcohol, because we've got such a science-based approach now, where we have a level like 0.08 for a blood alcohol level. But that took years of research to be able to get that done. I mean, the legislation was passed in 2000. The drinking age was increased to 21 back in 1984, and then that was, but again, that took years of research to be able to determine whether or not that was the proper age to be establishing that. And it was the same thing with the blood alcohol level. We've come a long way with that. But that's where we're at now with drugged driving. We're really at the infant stages. There is no set level of impairment per se that is legislatively confirmed right now. We're at that point. So it's going to have to take a lot more research and data collection to be able to look at how we can start going towards the same movement towards drugs, which is why we included it now in our mission, because law enforcement officials will discuss too about how they're seeing increased drugged driving, and that's a lot of police departments have a drug recognition expert that can be called in, and they can help determine what type of drug might be in somebody's system, if there's something that it may not be alcohol or some other drug.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain drugs that are not like marijuana that has a very distinct smell. There are other drugs out there that have other ways of being able to determine what they are. I mean, obviously, blood doesn't lie, so when blood is drawn, that will be 100%. But observationally, there might be other ways that a police officer or a drug recognition expert who's been trained will be able to help determine maybe where this person might be impaired. And I think that's something that a lot of individuals are not aware of. Drugs impair you. I mean, whether or not it's an illegal, illicit, or even a prescription drug, some drugs will impair you. And it takes that education for our population to be able to understand what these drugs do to their bodies, and they need to make the right decision. If there are certain drugs out there that are completely legal and prescription drugs that actually do impair you when you're behind the wheel.
That's right.
And I think a consumer needs to understand all of that.
The accident we were referencing earlier with the death of the young Woonsocket woman, Alexandra, he was hit for driving under the influence, but he was hit for driving while in possession of a controlled substance. So it certainly appears that the narcotic played a role in this story, at least.
And if there was a cocktail, so to speak, of what this person might have had in their system too, may not have just been one thing. And I think our youth and even adults need to be aware that there's an interactive nature to using multiple drugs at one time. And we know our youth are going to parties and celebrations, and they're experimenting with lots of different things. So they may be smoking marijuana, but also taking an opiate or taking a benzodiazepine or a Ritalin or a stimulant, and they don't know how they're interacting. They think, well, if I take something that calms me down, I'll need something to speed me up later. But they don't understand the interactive nature once it's in their system and how it's going to affect them. It doesn't act that easily. Or one will counteract the other. It doesn't work like that. So, and there's the chemistry and everything behind that, but just getting them the education to understand that you can't just take, going to the farming parties and taking a whole bunch in your hand and just downing them. It's unhealthy and bad choice.
I'd like to bring up something, if I may. The time of day we're on, we're talking to adults right now. Well, we hope the kids are in school. Knock on wood.
Fingers crossed.
They are. And I think a lot of the situations where, the kids, they get together, they huddle, they have their parties, but a lot of the adults, they may be going out to celebrate public places, restaurants, bars, and so forth. to hit that angle a little bit of being out there in the adult clubs, and also the role the establishment plays and the responsibility of that establishment with adults going to their places during the holiday season, or really any time of year.
I would say I think that there's ways that a lot of restaurants and things like that, when they do have a liquor license, they're trained to spot individuals and really be on the lookout for, number one, underage drinkers as well, people trying to get into their establishments that are not of age, and also looking at it from the perspective of the liability laws and things like that that might be in place where to be responsible over what they do. And I think that message has been out there for a couple of years, and I think that's something that I think is always in the mind's eye with them as well. And I think it's important for that message to be out there too. That there's a response, as I mentioned before, there's a responsibility of many different parties in regards to keeping people safe. And of course, I think all the players involved with that, whether it's people that know a person, if they're there out with somebody, or if it's an establishment where they might be out celebrating, things like that. And I think that message needs to be out there too. That this is something that is important. We can't be looking at somebody and then making that one decision of maybe I will sell to this person or not. I think doing the right thing is always important. I think, and again, that message that needs to be out there, I think, for an entire society, is that we need to look at drunk driving and drugged driving a certain way. Like I said, we've come a long way. But I think that still, as a community and as a society, we have to understand and be educated about this. This is a particular crime that needs to be taken seriously at all times, because it's that one decision that could make a difference. It's not something where we can look at it and say, you know what, if somebody's potentially impaired or not, and they might make the decision of, I think I'm okay. I think I'll drive tonight. It's not worth it. Don't take the risk. And I would say that with every player involved. If there's any question, don't take the risk. Yeah. There's no reason to. Mm-hmm. Do the right thing.
Last call seems like a bad idea. Now, I don't drink myself. My parents didn't drink. But I'm working the clubs, I'm working the bars, I'm working the restaurants, and what I witness is, people there having their good time and drinking throughout the evening, and then somebody shouts out, "Last call," and they're flooded. Just about everybody in the place is going to get one more. Some people are going to get two more. Mm-hmm. And now they've got 10 minutes to drink that last call drink and get out and hit the road. Yeah. I always thought last call seemed like a real bad idea. Yeah. Because now you're pounding one more and you got to get in the car and leave. Mm.
And that's, bringing back your original question, every server is required to take responsible beverage server training. And it has to be renewed every 3 years. So there are certain businesses that do that training. And recently we did 2 trainings, one in August and one in September this year, for our local businesses to be able to bring their, those that maybe have an expired certificate and come, and they learn and they're reminded on how they shouldn't be reserving those that they have been drinking all night and maybe impaired. So there's some liability, and it's with alcohol, the liability is on the person serving the alcohol. So if something happens and it's with, let's say, your establishment, it's the person that served the drinks that are responsible. With tobacco, it's different. It's the license holder that assumes the liability and responsibility. But regardless, there's supposed to be that professional that is that intermediate line between whether the person should have another drink and then step out of the building and get behind the car too. So there is, some liability there.
That it applies to all DUI offenders, like the majority of the country has. It's a great preventative measure that will stop somebody from doing the behavior again. And for many, many months, they might have this ignition interlock that is attached to their car starter. And it's about the size of an iPhone. And some people might argue that there's ways to cheat the system. It's very difficult because somebody has to blow into it, and then at some interval during their trip in their vehicle, they have to blow into it again. So it makes it very difficult for somebody trying to cheat the system. Many ignition interlocks also have cameras that are attached to it as well. So it's a great way technologically to be able to stop somebody. And technology is a great way. And we're hoping someday that there's standardization in vehicles that will prevent somebody from getting behind the wheel to begin with. And there's actually a precedent for that already. Ironically, there's a device called the DADS system that was invented in Europe with many federal funds actually being assisted through the U.S. government as well to look at this research. And it measures something a little bit different than what the ignition interlock does. What the DAD system does is it measures the amount of oxygen that is in the front side of the car and vehicle cabin. So as you might imagine, when a car is at rest, there's a set amount of oxygen. When somebody's consumed alcohol, they absorb oxygen in the blood. So when the car is open and this person is now getting in the vehicle, there would be either a differential in the oxygen level in the vehicle when somebody is impaired, is getting inside, or not. And if they do measure some sort of change in the oxygen level when this person's getting in, the car will not start. And it's a great way to be able to prevent somebody from doing this. Now, the other side of that is that device that I mentioned, the ignition interlock, is something that somebody can purchase on their own as well. So if somebody wanted to have that installed in their vehicle, whether or not that's been something that was given to them as a sentence through a judge, people can actually go buy one on their own and have it installed in their vehicle. And there's a certain price that they would pay per month for that. But again, I think it's a wonderful way to stop individuals from repeating that behavior. And it's a huge priority for MAD, both locally and nationally.
On the system you were talking about, I don't know if it's too technical a question,
Yep.
but you'd have to blow once to start the vehicle.
Correct.
Which you could potentially get somebody out of place that hasn't been drinking to start your car for you. You said when it goes down, you're going down the road for a while. You could blow again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you test high on that, will it actually just shut the car down?
Yes, that is correct.
Wow.
Yep.
That's some interesting stuff.
Yeah. Again, it's it's technology. It's a preventative measure. Preventative measures are a wonderful way of deterring the behavior and stopping the behavior. Another priority that we have next year is increasing the penalties for DUI with death resulting. It's something that I feel, and I think many individuals feel, is something that's warranted today, especially with this crime being something that is 100% preventable. And there's no excuse to be doing that behavior anymore. So the crime really should fit the sentence. There should be an increased sentence for DUI death resulting, and that's another priority that we have. Another one would be increasing the look-back period for who's considered a multiple offender. Currently in Rhode Island, it's 5 years. So if somebody has been convicted of a DUI and they do not get arrested or convicted again for the same crime within a 5-year period, if they do it again, they then would be considered legally a first-time offender again. So their criminal sentences would be towards that end. We would like to see it increase to 10 years. Because when somebody, as you might imagine, who is considered a multiple offender, they have a higher sentence for them. And it's, again, another measure that would deter that behavior. And even though it's more punitive, it's something that, again, it's sending a message out there that this is a behavior that is not going to be tolerated. And, individuals that do that type of behavior multiple times, it's something that, they can't be, if it's within a 10-year period, we feel that's plenty of time.
Yeah.
To be looking back. We feel that 5 years is too short.
Right. And do most of the sentences include treatment?
No, they do not. And that was the other big one I wanted to mention as well.
Mm.
Another priority for us would be requiring substance abuse treatment of some sort for especially multiple offenders. Because obviously when you're looking at it from pattern of behavior, it's something that having a treatment program in place would be warranted, and it would be actually a huge priority for us.
Yeah, and taking off my prevention hat and putting on my treatment hat as a clinician in the community, I did work with the state. They would make referrals in terms of a diversionary program. So if someone is a first-time offender, they would require them to go through the class to regain their license, but also they would send them to treatment for a period of time as part of that diversionary program to try to get them engaged and not continue the same behavior. So that was more on the treatment end. But I think, for those that are repeat offenders, certainly there's a problem. I'm not saying that one time is okay, but people should be referred to treatment. That connection should be made. Yeah. Are there any other legislative priorities that you're working with in terms of maybe the drug driving piece?
There has not. We would like to see drug driving legislation be put in, and it's something that we would be talking with legislators about to try to build that connection with them so that they understand the importance of that. And again, I feel that it would be interesting to look at some of the research that's been done in many other states and look at how we can incorporate a similar bill here in Rhode Island and how that might be championed by some of our legislators, because it is becoming an increasing problem. And one thing that I would certainly like to mention is that it's going to be really in the public eye very soon, because they're going back into session again in January. So building that connection and that momentum will be huge. And I can't understate enough the power of the voting population here. I think maybe sometimes individuals feel like they don't have any power, that we're just residents here, and what can I really do? Well, you have to remember too that all these individuals that are at the State House are elected officials that represent the community, and they are here for you, and you have a very powerful voice. You can make a huge difference, and that is why an organization like MAD has been successful over the years, because we had great resources and support from local people that had advocated for change, and they worked with their local legislators to make that happen. And, and that's something that I want to say, again, I can't say it enough, that we have a lot of power here, and we're able to, especially as a group or as a community, stand up and contact your local legislators and say, this is what we really want you to accomplish. And every legislator wants to represent their community well, and this is something, if this is becoming a priority for them and for their local community, they will do it. They will listen to you.
And on that note, we have to end. We probably could go on and on, speaking about the topic, but we just want to wish everyone listening happy holidays, safe holidays. Please think before you celebrate. Think about yourself. Think about others around you. There can be all sorts of unintended consequences when we make bad choices. So,
keep those half-filled cups of alcohol in the trash and not on the counters, and have cans of beers around your house.
Consider alternatives. And if you're going to host a party, make sure there's plenty of food. Make sure there are other alternatives to people driving home. Let them stay over, or knowing that there's maybe a hotel nearby, but think of alternatives when you are hosting.
That's a good idea, Lisa. Where you have a late something come out that's edible, whether it be cake or something.
Absolutely.
To help people on the way out.
Another thing too I want to mention real quick is that have a game plan when you're going out. You're going to go to a holiday party or a company party. Have a game plan. This day and age with technology, we have Uber. Download the app right on your smartphone, and then you can have an Uber driver pull up. It's a nice, comfortable ride. It's a lot less expensive than a DUI ticket, a life loss, and it's just a ripple effect on not only your close ones and your family, but the whole community. So happy holidays to all the listeners, and definitely
remember, you can call Valley Transportation, a sponsor of WNRI.
There we go. Thank you for that, for putting that in. Well, thank
you. Write that number down on your phone. Valley Transportation. Valley will get you home.
They're way better, actually.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric, for joining us today. Thank you, Rafi, and thank you to Jeff, and happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. We'll be back the last week of January.
Yes, last Thursday.
Which I'm not sure the date, because I don't have a 2016 calendar yet.
Oh, goodness.
I'm just putting out a Christmas gift idea for anybody in the room. I do not have a 2016 calendar. I like funny dog calendars. This is the one you'll see hanging in my office.
Those are fun. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.